Hello, my friends. Let's continue with Daniel's adventure. Before them stretched the forbidden forest, trees towering sky high, vines tangled thick, mist blanketing the ground in a suffocating shroud. Silence pressed down, broken only by the faint hiss of wind and the drip of water from leaves. Daniel unrolled the map. His eyes hardened. Daniel, the shortest path to the promised land is through here. Beneath the words, forbidden forest, was only one note: dangerous. Petter hesitated, fear flickering in his gaze. But at last, he nodded. They could not take the long way. Together, they stepped into the mist. The deeper they went, the thicker the fog. For the giants, this forest was a veil. They avoided it, their vision swallowed whole. But for the little people, it was still passable. They clung to roots, squeezed through walls of vines thick as a man's body, and climbed over ridges of twisted roots. Every step felt like sinking deeper into the throat of some great beast. Then it came. The scent. A strange purple blossom spread its perfume through the air, threading into their lungs. Daniel's head swam. Petter staggered. Petter's vision. Illusion flowers. The dark forest dissolved. Petter stood in a blazing square of light, music and drums thundering. Crowds of little people surrounded him, cheering. Villagers. Petter. Daniel? The heroes have arrived. A golden wreath was placed upon his head. They lifted him high, passing him from hand to hand like a god. Tables stretched into infinity, laden with meat, honey wine, ripe fruit. Petter laughed aloud, his chest swelling with pride. At last, he was no longer the orphan boy despised, but a hero, honoured, adored. He stretched out his arms, drunk on glory, forgetting everything, his hardships, the journey, the promised land. Daniel's vision, illusion, flowers. For Daniel, the fog melted into a sunlit path, and at its end stood John, his eyes warm, his smile gentle. John, Daniel, you left me once. Will you leave me again? The promised land? Lies. Stay with me, and we'll never part. Daniel's heart convulsed. Memories pierced him. Shared meals, laughter, promises. And then John's fall, his eyes wide, accusing, drenched in blood. The wound had never healed. Now John reached for him again. Just one step, and the torment would end. Sweat poured down Daniel's brow. A voice inside him screamed, "Daniel, no! If I fall here, Petter will be lost. The promised land still waits ahead. I cannot fail again." He bit his tongue. Blood filled his mouth. Pain split the illusion apart. John vanished, leaving only the dark mist. Back to reality. Daniel gasped, staggering. Petter was still trapped, arms raised, smiling faintly, lost in the false triumph. Daniel seized him, shaking hard, voice hoarse. "Daniel Petter, wake up. This is a lie. The promised land isn't here. It's still ahead." Petter blinked. The square, the cheers, the feast, all vanished. Only mist, choking flowers, and Daniel's desperate grip remained. Tears welled in his eyes. "Petter, brother, you saved me." Daniel squeezed his shoulder firmly, as if swearing to himself they would never fall again. Deeper in the forest, they pressed on cautiously, but soon a hiss. From the fog, a massive flower rose, its petals opening wide. Its center was wet, red, glistening. A mouth. Suddenly, a vine lashed out, seizing Petter's ankle, dragging him toward the gaping maw. Daniel Petter. Petter's scream caught in his throat as the flower pulled him closer. Daniel roared, "Daniel, piss on it! Now!" Stunned, Petter obeyed. A stream sprayed across the flower's red heart. Instantly it shrieked, convulsing as though scalded. The vine recoiled, flinging Petter across the ground. Daniel rushed to haul him up, but more vines slithered out, writhing like snakes, sweeping the ground, probing for prey. Daniel hissed. Daniel played dead. Don't breathe. They flattened themselves to the earth, hearts hammering, lungs burning. Cold tendrils brushed across their shoulders, their cheeks. One twitch, and it would all be over. At last, the vines retreated, squirming back into the shadows. Silence fell. Daniel whispered, breath ragged. Daniel. They're gone. Peta sobbed, clutching Daniel tightly. Days in the forest, they crept on, step by step, wary of every flower, every root. Mist choked their lungs, clothes hung in tatters, feet bled. Time lost meaning. Then, light. One morning, Peta froze. Ahead, a shaft of golden sun pierced through the canopy. Both brothers broke into a run, stumbling, desperate. The mist thinned. Roots gave way to a slope. And then, they burst free. Wind rushed against their faces. The sun dazzled their eyes. After endless days of shadow, they were free. Behind them, the forest whispered, its leaves sighing like voices that still tried to hold them back. But Daniel and Peta had escaped its jaws. Daniel collapsed onto a stone, breath ragged. From his pocket, he pulled out the old map. Its lines faded, but still clear enough to show the way. His finger traced two diverging paths. Daniel one road leads to the sea. The other, through the city of giants. Peta stared, then burst out laughing, shaking his head. Peta, the sea? For people like us, crossing it is madness. We have no ship, no strength to fight the waves. Daniel nodded. He knew. The sea was impossible. The only path left was through the giant's city. More dangerous still, where a single step of theirs could crush them like ants. Daniel. Then we choose the other way, but we must find a way not to be seen. Peta's eyes caught something in the distance, dark streams flowing out from the city walls. Peta. The sewers. If we move beneath, the giants won't see us. Daniel smiled faintly, nodding. Decision made. The brothers clasped hands, drew deep breaths, and walked toward the looming city. The tunnel was damp, reeking with filth. Daniel and Peta covered their noses as they pressed on. Peta's torch sputtered, its flickering glow casting their shadows against slimy, moss-streaked walls. Peta, muttering, "Hold on, Daniel. Better this stench than being seen by giants." Daniel gripped his wooden staff, forcing courage into his hands. But neither knew that in the darkness behind them, a pair of glowing yellow eyes watched. A sewer rat, enormous, fur matted with filth, teeth long and sharp as knives. Its snout twitched, breath hissing. Daniel, whispering, "The rat." The beast lunged, claws clattering against stone. Daniel and Peta ran with all their might, the sound of its screeches filling the tunnel. It leapt along the walls, slamming down, jaws snapping inches from their heels. Ahead, Daniel spotted a gap between stones. Daniel, Peta. Here. They dove inside. The rat slammed against the opening, its fangs gnashing, nearly catching Peta's leg. But its massive body could not squeeze through. It roared, claws scraping the wall, making the stones quake. Daniel swallowed hard. Daniel, whispering, "We wait. Let's see who tires first." The rat lingered, sniffing, its stench filling the crack where they hid. Time crawled by. Then, when it turned away for a heartbeat, Daniel lunged. The rat charged. But Daniel ducked back just in time. Its skull smashed against the wall with a thunderous crack. Daniel and Peta exhaled, trembling, then almost laughed at the clumsy sight of the furious beast. Daniel's eyes caught a faint glimmer above. Daniel, Peta. Look, a drain cover. That's our way out. Petter's eyes lit with hope. Petter, then we can escape. Daniel, grimly. Not yet. This is its domain. We must wait for the right moment. They crouched in silence. At last, the rat grew weary, its breaths heavy, eyes drooping. It slumped into sleep. Daniel signaled. Quietly, they slipped from the crack, scaling the slippery wall toward the faint light above. But then, a sound. The rat stirred. Its eyes flared gold once more. With a furious screech, it lunged. Daniel and Petter, together. Run! They scrambled toward the grate, hearts pounding. The iron bars loomed overhead, rusted but firm. With desperate strength, they leapt, clutching the bars. The rat reared, snapping at their dangling legs. Each jump brought its fangs closer, claws carving deep gouges into the wall. Daniel, gasping. Petter. Climb! Petter hauled himself up, scraping against sharp edges, tearing his clothes. But he pulled through, collapsing onto the surface. He reached back, gripping Daniel's arm. The rat hurled itself upward, body slamming the wall. The grate rattled violently. Daniel almost fell. But with Petter's final pull, he scrambled free. Both brothers rolled onto the ground above, gasping. Sunlight washed over their dirt and blood-streaked faces. Below, the rat shrieked and clawed, but the iron grate held firm, trapping it beneath. Petter burst into shaky laughter, tears of relief in his eyes. Petter. We're alive, Daniel. Then their breaths caught. Before them loomed the city of giants. Houses of stone and wood towered like mountains, roofs tiled red in endless rows. Roads of cracked stone stretched far, trembling under the wheels of colossal wagons. In the distance, church bells tolled, vendors shouted. The thunder of giant footsteps shook the ground. Daniel lifted his gaze, whispering, awe and dread mingling. Daniel Petter. This is the city? Petter stood frozen, his heart torn between wonder and terror. Against this vast world, they were nothing but specks of dust. Daniel froze mid-sentence, his gaze locked on something in the brush nearby. Petter whispers, "What is it?" Then he saw it too. A dog, massive, muscular, its matted grey fur reeking, yellow eyes gleaming with cruel delight. Drool dripped from its open jaws. Petter, hoarse whisper. Not again. The hound barked, deafening, then charged, an arrow of muscle and fury scattering dirt and grass. Daniel, run! The brothers darted, slipping through cracks and under chairs too small for the beast. But the dog pursued relentlessly, nose pressed to the ground, smashing aside anything in its way. Petter. In there! They dove beneath a broken table. Crash! The ground collapsed. Both fell straight down into darkness. Metal bars slammed shut above them. They landed hard on the wooden floor of a massive rat trap. Petter, shaken, gripping the bars. We're trapped. The hound loomed outside, snout pressed to the cage, sniffing furiously. Daniel and Petter froze, hearts hammering. After a while, the beast growled, pawed once, then turned away, disappointed. Its heavy steps faded into silence. Daniel slumped against the bars, chuckling weakly. Daniel? In misfortune. We found a little luck. At least this time we're still alive. Petter managed a trembling laugh, tears streaking down his dusty face. Yet danger remained. The iron bars towered over them like prison walls. Daniel strained, pushing, but the bars did not budge. Petter clawed at the gaps, his palms raw. Petter, these aren't for us. They're built for sewer rats. We'll never break them. Defeated, they sank to the floor. Dim light filtered through the cage, striping their faces with shadows. Daniel, all we can do is wait. Petter, waiting for doom, until a giant finds us. The silence thickened. Then, a tremor. Thud, thud, thud. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, shaking the earth. Daniel and Peta clung to the bars, eyes wide. From the road ahead, a towering figure emerged, a giant man, broad as a fortress wall, hair tangled on his shoulders, coarse brown tunic hanging to his knees. He bent down, peering into the trap. Two enormous eyes, blue as twin moons, fixed on them. His mouth curved into a slow grin. Giant man. Well, well, little people. Haven't seen your kind in ages. I thought you'd all hidden away in the forbidden forest. Daniel and Peta froze. They understood every word. Little folk could hear the giant's speech, but their own voices were too faint, too high-pitched for giants to ever hear. The man studied them, then rumbled a laugh. Giant man. Perfect. I'll bring you home. Emma will be delighted to have company. His massive hand descended. Fingers thick as branches closed around the cage, lifting it with ease. Daniel and Peta clung to the bars, powerless. The giant carried them into his home. Upstairs, a door creaked open. Inside sat a girl, no more than 8 or 9. Her face was delicate, her great eyes pools of autumn water, but shadowed with sadness. She stared out the window, silent. The giant placed the cage on her bedside table. Giant man Emma. Look what I've brought you. New friends? The girl turned, her eyes lit up, wonder blooming. Emma, little people? Are they real? You said they'd all gone far away. She pressed a small hand against the cage, eyes sparkling. Peta's pride flared. Snarling, he lunged and bit her fingertip. Emma, ow! She pulled back in shock. Peta pounded the bars in fury, eyes blazing. The giant's voice thundered. Giant man, enough! He slammed a palm against the cage. The brothers were thrown to the floor, bruised and gasping. Daniel seized Peta, holding him down. Daniel, stop. Don't waste your strength. The giant softened his tone, turning to Emma. Giant man. My little one? Do you remember Sunny, the bird? Before it flew away, it promised to send you new friends. Think of these two as Sunny. They'll keep you company when I cannot. Emma gazed at the cage, nursing her finger. Curiosity glowed in her eyes. The giant left, door closing with a heavy thud. Silence fell. Emma leaned closer, whispering through the bars. Emma, hello? My name is Emma. From now on, I'll call you Max and Leo. Peta seethed, ready to lash out again, but Daniel's firm grip held him back. They sat in silence, ignoring her attempts at play. After a while, laughter of children echoed from outside. Emma's gaze drifted to the window, longing shadowing her face. Daniel noticed. Why doesn't she join them? He wondered. Emma, father. Daniel and Peta stiffened. Fear coiled tight. Would she hand them over? The giant returned. Emma whispered, cheeks red. Emma, I need to use the bathroom. He scooped her gently into his arms. Daniel's eyes widened. Her legs hung limp, lifeless. Emma was paralyzed. Before leaving, the giant dropped a chunk of bread into the cage. Giant man. Were they good, Emma? Not troublesome? Emma smiled faintly. Emma. They were good. I even named them Max and Leo. Giant man. Good. Then play well, my little one. He left. Emma placed the cage on the windowsill. Wind whispered. Children's laughter drifted in. She stared out, voice soft and trembling. Emma. My name is Emma. I used to wish I could run and laugh like the others. But these legs, they don't listen to me anymore. Her eyes glistened. Emma. Every day I sit here, watching, dreaming. Father tells me stories of your kind. Brave, free, roaming, everywhere. I wish I had a friend, just once, so I wouldn't be so alone. Daniel's chest ached. Slowly he rose, pressing a hand to the bars. He gestured, nodding firmly, pointing from Emma's legs to the sky outside. His meaning was clear. Freedom is what we long for, too. Emma's eyes widened. Emma, do you want to be free? The brothers froze, a giant's voice, carrying words meant for them. Daniel nodded hard. Peta followed, overwhelmed. Emma hesitated. Her hand trembled on the latch. Finally, click. The cage door swung open. The brothers stared, stunned. Peta, whispering urgently, "Come on, before she changes her mind." But Daniel held him back. Daniel, no. Without her, we'd never escape. He bowed deeply toward Emma. She blinked, then smiled through tears, lifting a hand to them. Daniel stepped forward, brushing his tiny palm against her fingertip, a fragile handshake, a bond sealed. The door creaked open. Giant man. Emma, are you hungry? Daniel and Peta scrambled, hiding beneath Emma's skirt. The giant's eyes fell on the open cage. He paused, sighing. Giant man. You set them free again, didn't you? Emma lowered her head. Emma? Yes. He had suspected as much, just as he once knew she freed Sonny. Yet he had never scolded her. Emma burst into tears, clutching his tunic. Emma, father, I just want to play, to laugh like the others. The giant held her close, voice trembling. Giant man. My daughter. Don't cry. I'm here. Daniel and Peta watched, hidden, their hearts aching. Emma wiped her tears, then whispered, Emma, Max, and Leo. They're still here. The giant frowned, scanning the room. Daniel took Peta's hand, and together they stepped into the open, trembling but resolute. Emma clutched her father's massive hand, voice trembling with urgency. Emma, father, take them out of the city. If they try to leave on their own, the other children will surely catch them. I don't want them locked away again. The giant man studied his daughter, then looked down at the trembling yet defiant little figures before him. Slowly, he nodded. Giant man. All right, my child. For you, I will. He lowered his enormous hand. This time it wasn't forceful. It was open, like a bridge. Daniel and Peta exchanged a look, then stepped onto the vast palm. Daniel lifted his gaze toward Emma, pointing at her with a pleading look. The giant understood. He brought his hand close to his daughter. Daniel and Peta leapt gently onto Emma's small palm. Both knelt, bowing low. Daniel pressed a tiny kiss against her fingertip, and Peta followed, fragile gestures, yet filled with gratitude. Emma's eyes welled with tears. She bent close, whispering softly, Emma, go. Go wherever your hearts lead you. I wish you luck. Their eyes met. In that silent exchange, a bond was forged. 3 souls, bound across 2 worlds. The giant carefully retrieved the brothers, slipping them into the pocket of his tunic. Without another word, he strode, quickly out of the room. Outside, he seized the reins. A massive horse reared, neighing, then thundered forward. Wind howled, buildings shrank behind them, and the stone walls of the giant city faded into the distance. Under moonlight, silver washed the lonely road. After a long ride, the giant slowed, halting in a desolate clearing. He lowered Daniel and Peta gently onto a moss-covered stone. He did not speak. He only turned, striding away, his towering figure retreating into the night. The brothers stood still, watching him go. No longer just a stranger, he now seemed like a father. A back broad and strong, yet heavy with unspoken sorrow. Daniel and Peta lay on the stone, trying to rest. But Daniel tossed and turned, thoughts circling Emma's words. There are no more little people around here. He realized it was true. Since the Forbidden Forest, through all their trials, they had met no others of their kind. The silence was no longer frightening. It was confirmation. The little folk had left to seek a new home. Daniel's eyes shone. Daniel, whispering, "Peta, we're on the right path. The promised land is still ahead." Peta nodded, heart burning with hope. The night air chilled, carrying scents of wild grass, the chorus of insects. Above them, the sky stretched vast and starlit. Two tiny figures, yet within them, an unshakable dream. Daniel finally drifted into uneasy sleep. In his dream, a radiant gate opened at the horizon, thousands of little people waving, calling them forward. Sunrise broke. Daniel rose, slinging his worn satchel. Peta was ready at once. No words were needed. They clasped hands, eyes fixed on the endless road ahead. They left the mossy stone behind, stepping into fields that rolled like a sea of grass. The wild stalks whispered in the wind. The story of Daniel's adventure is not over yet. Find out what happens next in the following video.